Watching as the vehicle pulled away, only when it had turned the corner did he head back inside his house. Mark sat frozen for a moment, weighing his options. The exchange could be anything: a business transaction, legal documents, private security. Matters wealthy men like Clint often dealt with bodyguards and private investigators, but the timing so soon after the storage unit discovery nagged at him, and Clint had pointed toward the woods, suggesting a destination rather than just giving directions. The SUV was getting farther away. Mark made his decision and pulled out, maintaining a safe following distance. He knew this area well enough. It was residential for several miles in every direction, with no office buildings or commercial centers where a business meeting might take place. If Clint had been pointing to a property, it had to be something private, secluded. As he drove, Mark reached for his radio and called the station. "This is Agent Callahan. I need someone to pull all real estate holdings for Clint Hero and his companies. Look for any remote properties, especially anything near the Denton Hills area." Copy that. The dispatcher responded. "Detective Sullivan wants to know if you need backup." "Not yet, I'm just following a lead, but have a unit on standby." The black SUV led him out of the suburban sprawl and onto Farm Road to 450, heading west toward more rural territory. After about 15 minutes, it turned onto a gravel access road marked only by a weathered wooden sign. Mark slowed, letting the SUV get ahead. Before following through the trees, he glimpsed a large building, institutional looking, with white stucco walls and a red tile roof. As he got closer, he could make out the lettering on a monument sign: House of Renewed Light, a haven for children. It was the same orphanage from Clint's photographs. Mark parked at a distance and watched as the men exited the SUV. They walked with purpose toward the main entrance, the one carrying the envelope leading the way. A middle-aged woman in a grey dress emerged to greet them. From her bearing and the way she gestured, she appeared to be in charge. She accepted the envelope with both hands and gave a small deferential bow. The men stayed only a few moments before returning to their vehicle and departing. Mark felt foolish. Of course, Clint would send donations to the orphanage he supported. The envelope was probably a check or cash donation, the men likely private security he employed for such transfers. Still, having come this far, he decided to take a look at the facility himself. The building was larger than it appeared in the photographs, a sprawling single-story structure that looked like it might have once been a school or medical facility. Mark parked in the visitor area and walked to the main entrance, his FBI credentials ready. The same woman who had greeted the men answered his knock. Up close, he could see she was perhaps 50, with graying hair pulled back in a severe bun and sharp, intelligent eyes. "May I help you?" she asked, her accent suggesting Eastern European origins. Mark showed his badge. "Special Agent Mark Callahan, FBI. Please don't be alarmed. I'm not here about the orphanage. Specifically, we found some evidence related to a case at a property owned by Mr. Clint Haraway, and I'm just following up on all his property connections." The woman's expression softened slightly. "Oh, Mr. Hero, such a generous man. I am Mrs. Volkov, the director here. Please come in." She led him through a reception area that smelled of industrial disinfectant and into a hallway lined with children's artwork. "Mr. Haraway founded this orphanage 5 years ago," she explained as they walked. "We care for children who have lost their parents, many from across the border. We help them find new families, new opportunities." The tour was brief but thorough. Mark saw dormitory rooms with neat rows of beds, a cafeteria where a handful of children were having an afternoon snack, a small classroom with outdated textbooks. Everything appeared clean and orderly, if somewhat austere. The building seemed smaller on the inside than its exterior suggested, as if not all of it was being utilized. "You're welcome to look around more," Mrs. Volkov said, as they returned to the reception area. "I have a meeting with some donors. Now, they just arrived. Someone will bring you coffee if you'd like to wait." Mark watched as a group of well-dressed men entered and followed Mrs. Vuloff toward what appeared to be an administrative wing. He settled into one of the worn chairs in the waiting area, studying the faded motivational posters on the walls. A few minutes later, a teenage girl appeared, carrying a tray with a coffee cup. She was Asian, probably Southeast Asian, with long black hair and nervous eyes. Her hands trembled slightly as she set the cup on the table. "Are you police?" she asked quietly, her English heavily accented. "FBI." Mark said gently, showing his badge. "Thank you for the coffee." The girl glanced quickly over her shoulder, then back at him. "Here is okay, is all right. Here I am," knew something in her tone made Mark leaned forward. "How long have you been here?" 2 weeks. Only. She twisted her hands together. "I am 18 years. My name is Dara Darapov, from Cambodia." Mark found it odd that an orphanage would take in an 18-year-old well past the typical adoption age. "Are you all right, Dara? You seem frightened." She looked behind her again, ensuring they were alone. Then, in a rush of words, "They took my friend last week. People came and took her and other children. Please, you help her." Mark's pulse quickened. "Took her? Where? I know where." Dar whispered urgently. "They took me too, but they not choose me. Send me back, they say. I am due this week. Due for what I don't know. Other children say is not good when they say do, please. I am scared. You help." Before Mark could respond, a male staff member appeared in the doorway. "Dra, come, you have chores." The girl's face went pale. Mark stood up. "Actually, I was just talking to Dara about taking her out for ice cream. She mentioned she's never been to an American ice cream parlor." The staff member frowned. "She had ice cream last week." "I'm Agent Callahan, FBI." Mark said, producing his badge again. "I've taken a bit of a personal interest in Dara here, bright girl. I think she has a future." At that moment, Mrs. Vuloff emerged from her meeting, the group of donors filing out behind her. They eyed Mark with suspicious interest as they passed. "What's happening here?" Mrs. Volkov asked, noticing the tension. Mark explained his ice cream invitation, keeping his tone light and casual. Mrs. Volkov's lips pursed. "This is highly irregular. We have procedures." "Of course," Mark said smoothly. "I understand completely, but surely a small exception could be made. I am a federal agent, after all, a trusted figure in the community, as Mr. Haraway would confirm." Mrs. Volkov considered this very well. "But Jacob must accompany you. We cannot allow children to leave unescorted." Mark nodded, though internally he was racing through options in the parking lot. While Jacob was talking with Mrs. Volkov, Mark whispered quickly to Dra, "Show me where your friend is. Don't worry about Jacob." The girl nodded, understanding flashing in her eyes. Mark used his radio in the car to call the station. "This is Callahan. I need units on standby. Possible situation developing. Monitor the House of Renewed Light Orphanage and Clint Herway residence." He gave them the addresses, speaking in quick professional tones. "And I need a tail on my vehicle discreetly. I may be heading into something." When everything was ready, he helped the girl into his car. Dar slid into the front passenger seat, while Jacob, the staff member, climbed into the back, immediately voicing his displeasure. "She should sit in back," Jacob protested, his accent thick. "Is not proper. It's fine," Mark said firmly, starting the engine. "She can sit anywhere she wants." They left the orphanage grounds. Dara glanced at him gratefully, then pointed to the access road. "That way, go west." Mark pulled onto the road, noting in his rear view mirror that the patrol car was maintaining a discreet distance behind them. Jakob sat rigid in the back seat, arms crossed, clearly unhappy with the arrangement for the first 15 minutes. They drove in relative silence through rural Texas. Landscape farm roads gave way to even smaller county roads, the terrain becoming increasingly desolate. Dar provided quiet directions at each intersection, her voice barely above a whisper. Left here now, straight for long time. Yes, keep going, it was Jakob who first voiced what Mark already knew. This is not way to town. Where are you taking us? Just a little detour, Mark said calmly. No, Jakob leaned forward. Turn around. Now this is kidnapping. I call police. Mark gestured with his thumb toward the rear window. The police are already here. That patrol car has been with us since we left. Jacob twisted around, saw the marked unit, and his face went pale. What is this? Mr. Haraway will hear about this. There will be consequences. He fumbled for his phone, punching in numbers with shaking fingers in one smooth motion. Mark reached back with his free hand and snatched the phone away, keeping his other hand steady on the wheel. No calls right now. Jacob, you can't do this. Is illegal. Mark pulled the car to the shoulder and turned to face Jakob. Fully listen to me very carefully. This young woman has told me that children are being taken from your orphanage, trafficked. Her friend was taken last week and she knows where his lies. Jakob sputtered. Crazy girl. Tells stories, maybe, Mark said, or maybe you know exactly what's been happening. Here's your choice. Jakob, you can help us. Tell us what you know. Cooperate fully, and the police, and I will make sure the court knows you assisted in rescuing these children. Or you can keep protecting whoever's behind this, and go down with them. What's it going to be? Jakob's face cycled through several emotions: anger, fear, calculation. Finally, his shoulders slumped. I just worked there. I do what they tell me. And what do they tell you sometimes? Sometimes we prepare children for adoption, special adoptions. They tell us not to ask questions. Where do they take them? Jakob was silent for a long moment, then pointed ahead. Same place. She's taking you. The old Benedetti vineyard is abandoned for 10 years. But people use it for the special adoptions. Mark started driving again. You're making the right choice, Jacob. They drove for another 40 minutes deeper into Ponder County. The landscape became increasingly desolate: scrub brush, abandoned farmhouses, rusted equipment left to decay, and foul fields. Finally, Dar pointed to a worn dirt road nearly hidden by overgrown mesquite. There, that's the place. Mark turned onto the road, slowing as the car bounced over ruts and potholes through the brush. He could see the remains of what had once been a prosperous vineyard. Row after row of dead, twisted grapevines, stretching up a gentle slope. At the top sat a collection of buildings, a main house with broken windows and peeling paint, several outbuildings, and what looked like a large processing facility. And parked near the main house, the black SUV from Clint's place. Mark radioed the patrol car. We've got the same vehicle from the Haraway residence. Proceeding with caution. He parked at a safe distance and stepped out, hand resting on his service weapon. Two uniformed officers from the patrol car joined him. Officer Martinez, stay with the girl. Mark instructed Officer Thompson, you're with me. Jakob, you're coming to show us where they conduct this special adoption business. Jakob led them past the main house, which was clearly abandoned. Doors hanging off hinges, roof partially collapsed. But as they moved toward the old barrel storage building, Mark noticed signs of recent activity: fresh tire tracks, cigarette butts, a new padlock on what should have been a defunct facility. They were approaching the cellar entrance when Mark heard it, a weak, persistent coughing from somewhere below ground, followed by what sounded like someone struggling against restraints. Radio 4 backup, Mark told Thompson quietly. An EMT now. Thompson made the call while Mark studied the cellar doors. They looked reinforced, newer than the surrounding structure. Jacob was sweating despite the cool afternoon air. They're down there? Mark asked. Jakob nodded miserably. The special room for preparation. Thompson finished his radio call and examined the wall near the cellar entrance. Sir, look at this. He pushed against what appeared to be a solid wall, but it gave slightly false panel, recent construction. Mark drew his weapon, federal agent. He called out, anyone down there needs to come up with their hands visible. No response except for more coughing and a muffled cry, we're going in. Mark decided. He looked at Jacob. Last chance. You with us or against us? With you, Jacob whispered. God. Forgive me. With you. The three men descended the wooden steps into darkness. Mark's flashlight swept across a narrow corridor that opened into a larger underground space. The smell hit them. First human waste, fear, sweat, and something medical, antiseptic. Then Mark's light found him. Nathan Raines, barely recognizable after 4 years, was chained to a metal rack against a far wall. His hair was long and matted, his body skeletal, dressed in filthy rags. Burn marks and scars covered his exposed skin. One ear was missing, several fingers gone. Standing over him was one of the men from the orphanage, preparing a syringe filled with clear liquid. FBI, drop the syringe and step away. Mark shouted, his weapon trained on the man. The trafficker spun around, shock replacing concentration on his face. Nathan's eyes, hollow but still alert, widened in recognition. Mark. The voice was barely a whisper, ruined by years of screaming. The trafficker immediately dropped the syringe, letting it clatter on the concrete floor. He raised his hands as Thompson moved in with handcuffs, kicking the syringe safely away. Nathan. Mark breathed, holstering his weapon to approach his partner. Jesus Christ, we thought you were dead. Before Nathan could respond, footsteps echoed from the corridor. 3 more men appeared, freezing when they saw the officer's hands. Up now. Thompson commanded. 2 of them bolted immediately. Thompson managed to grab one, while Mark pursued the others up the stairs and into the fading daylight. He fired a warning shot into the air. Stop, or the next one won't be a warning. One man spun around, pulling a pistol from his waistband. The bullet went wide, sparking off a metal barrel. He tried to aim again, but Mark's training kicked in. 2 shots sent a mass. The man crumpled. The third man threw himself to the ground, hands behind his head. Don't shoot, I surrender. Mark zip-tied him as backup units roared onto the property. Officers spreading out to secure the perimeter. EMTs rushed toward the cellar web. Nathan waited. There are more victims, Mark told the arriving lieutenant. A girl came here looking for her friend. If Nathan's here, there have to be others. The search took an hour. They checked every building, every possible hiding place. Finally, in the abandoned wine processing facility, an officer noticed scratch marks around a storage room door, as if someone had tried to claw their way out. Inside, they found them, 15 women and children, huddled in a space meant for equipment. No windows, 1 bucket for waste. The smell was overwhelming. Some cried when they saw the uniforms. Others seemed too broken to react. A woman who appeared to be the oldest grabbed Mark's arm. The tank, she said, in broken English. They put the ones who sick or die in the tank. Please, some were alive when they went in. Please check. Mark and Thompson found the access ladder to the fermentation tanks. Mark climbed up, steeling himself for what he might find. The smell hit him before he even looked inside. He forced himself to shine his light down into the tank bodies, at least 6, in various stages of decomposition, floating in the remnants of old wine and rainwater. Mark keyed his radio with shaking hands. We need the coroner and a full forensics team. Multiple victims in the fermentation tank. Sometime later, the abandoned vineyard had transformed into a coordinated crime scene. Rescue vehicles filled the dirt road, their emergency lights painting the dead grapevines in alternating red and blue. FBI agents and local police officers moved with practiced efficiency, securing evidence and processing the multiple crime scenes. Mark stood near the processing facility, watching as EMTs carefully led the rescued women and children to waiting ambulances. His radio crackled to life. Unit 12, to all units, suspect Clint Hero A has been apprehended at his residence. He's being transported to Denton PD for booking a small measure of relief washed over. Mark, at least they'd gotten the man at the top. He watched as officers escorted the traffickers to patrol cars there. Hands cuffed behind their backs, the one Mark had shot was being loaded into the coroner's van, a necessary outcome that still left him. Feeling hollow across the yard, he spotted Dara kneeling beside a stretcher where another young Asian woman lay. The friend she'd been searching for, even from this distance. Mark could see them crying, clutching each other's hands. He made his way over to them. "Thank you," Dara said, looking up at him with tears streaming down her face. "You saved her, you saved her, you saved us all." Her friend, who couldn't have been more than 16, whispered something in what Mark assumed was Khmer translated. "She says, you're a guardian angel." "I'm just glad we found you in time," Mark said, gently. "Listen, both Mr. Hairway and the orphanage have been secured. You're safe now. Child Protective Services will help you figure out what comes next. Make sure you're taken care of." Dira nodded, then surprised him by standing and hugging him briefly before returning to her friend's side. Mark left them to the EMTs and scanned the organized chaos until he found what he was looking for near one of the ambulances. Nathan Raines sat on a gurney while paramedics checked his vitals, even cleaned up slightly and wrapped in a thermal blanket. He looked terrible. His face was gaunt, cheekbones sharp beneath paper-thin skin. His remaining hair had gone completely grey, but it was his expression that struck Mark most, not relief or joy at being rescued, but something closer to despair. Mark approached slowly, not wanting to startle him. Nathan, his former partner, looked up, attempted a smile that didn't reach his hollow eyes. "Hey, Mark, some rescue, huh? Just like old times." The attempt at humor fell flat, his voice broken. "How are you?" Holding up, Nathan shrugged, then winced at the movement. "Physically, I'll live. They kept me alive for a reason." He paused, his jaw working. "Mark, I need to tell you something. These people, they're part of the Crossroads Network." Mark's eyes widened. The Crossroads Network was a human trafficking organization the FBI had been investigating for years. A sophisticated operation that moved victims across the Mexican border through a series of safe houses and corrupt officials Nathan had been heading. The investigation, when he disappeared, they grabbed me in. 87, Nathan continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was following a lead on some shell companies. They were using, thought I was meeting an informant, but it was a setup they wanted. Everything I knew about the investigation." "Nathan, you don't have to know. I need to say this." Nathan's remaining fingers clutched the blanket. "They tortured me, Mark, for weeks at first, then periodically for years. The chair you found, that was just one of their tools. They broke me. I gave them everything: safe house locations, undercover identities, surveillance schedules, everything." His voice cracked. "Because of what I told them, they were able to restructure their entire operation, avoid our raids, expand into new territories. God knows how many women and children were trafficked because I couldn't hold out." "Nathan, stop." Mark put a hand on his partner's shoulder, feeling bones through the blanket. "You held out for 4 years. Look at me, you survived what no one should have to endure. This isn't on you."